Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Hi, I'm Addie.
Hi, I'm Gavin Sharkey.
Hi, I'm Lachlan Sabrin.
I didn't say my own.
Hi, I'm Tillian. Hi, I'm Cade. What?
And welcome to Youth on Subjects of the World. And today we are talking about LGBT stuff.
Q plus
That's it.
stuff.
LGBTQIA plus.
Hi, what's that?
So,
All right.
who wants to start?
Lachlan.
I think Lachlan.
I nominate Lachlan. Oh wait, do we want to go around and say what we identify as?
Oh yeah, should we start with that? What everyone identifies as, so like, get that out of the way.
All right. Addie.
All right, Addie, you go.
I identify as female and pan.
Okay.
I don't know. Why am I starting?
Let's start with someone else then.
Thank you.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I'm a cis male, but I'm gay. That's it. Which used to be like a big deal, but saying you're gay is just like okay. All right. Who else?
Hi, I'm Lachlan. You know that. I identify as a transgender male and a pansexual, depending on the day.
Depending on the day. Depending on the day.
You know,
Your turn. My
I
turn.
don't know.
I'm a trans guy, but I'm also gay. I'm Cade, and I'm agender and bi.
Nice. Okay.
Agender means no gender.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Fairly self-explanatory, actually.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
It's typically,
Okay, you know what, just
the
start
only
talking.
one you don't have to explain.
The check new stuff.
Why?
Actually, most of them are pretty self-explanatory.
What?
I don't know.
I'm not listening. Okay, someone start talking.
Okay.
Well, what do we want to talk about?
I don't know. Well, the topic is LGBTQI+.
What can we talk about in that? Like that's a really broad topic.
It really is.
So we should narrow it down a bit. Where do we want to start? Like we could talk about personal experiences with it, oppression we faced, or because that's still quite,
A broad
Oh.
topic.
yeah, it's still really broad.
All right.
I think you should talk about it.
Well, if you just want me to start with something, I recently started testosterone. I'm 6 weeks on testosterone. That's pretty big.
That's really cool. Holy crap.
Congratulations. I recently started gender therapy.
Big.
That was interesting. I've been in lots of therapy for things, but it's something about gender therapy that's just so different.
Yeah, I have to go to therapy too.
A therapy, a singular therapy.
I was
Well, actually, that made me think of something. So one topic amongst people who are like questioning gay stuff and or specifically trans
good stuff.
is when it's appropriate or what's the right age for someone to start transitioning like medically, like actually start doing
I
like
was like fighting
testosterone.
with someone on the comments section of something yesterday. Just literally yesterday, I was talking about that.
So yeah, I think we'd like to hear your opinions on it because we're both not trans or not, we're both just cis. So I think your opinions would
At
be
the
a bit
moment,
more accurate and be, more honest and better, more educated, I guess.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? Like what's a good age to start for
Wanna start?
parents? Sure.
wait, we're starting with parents.
No, not you guys.
Well,
What?
Other you guys.
well, it's really a personal thing, I guess. Like when 5-year-olds come out to like 10, it's usually like just socially transitioning. So that's just like changing your name and like your clothes and stuff. So like that's like no big deal really. And I feel like everyone who's trans should be able to do that. But like starting hormones is like also a personal thing, I think. Like, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was.
It's Lachlan, do you have a statement on it?
A little bit, sort of. I actually had no idea that I was trans until about 13, 12 or 13, and I had suspicions, and looking back, there were kind of obvious signs that I was ignoring. But, so, like Tillian said, it is definitely a personal thing, and it's also because it really starts to come up more when it becomes more necessary for you to start transitioning. So, whenever you feel the need to start transitioning, I don't,
Yeah,
not making sense.
I didn't know until I was like 16, so.
Mm.
But then I also know somebody who is 16 and has known for years and just hasn't started transitioning, and that's also a personal choice.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the person and how
Yeah.
they feel about everything.
And not all trans people want to transition as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then there's also the problem of other people assuming that it's a phase, and the younger you
Yeah.
are, the more they assume that. But then at the same time, when you get to be at a certain age, then suddenly it's, how did you miss this?
Yeah.
And now there's a whole new set of problems that come with that. So there's sort of this small age window that you have to come out in. And if you came out before that, then you were too young, and after that, and you're too old, and you can't transition now, but you still can.
Mhm.
Mm.
Transitioning is really personal.
It is.
Well, at least on the medical side, it's a really complicated conversation because when it comes to like hormonal like transitioning, it really should be done earlier because once you hit puberty, it becomes much more difficult for the body to transition because those hormones are like already pumping through you for either gender. But if it is in fact a phase or they're not trans, but they are like gay or something or whatever, what they were going through was not transgenderism. If you start the hormone therapy and then their body's completely different, then they will have actual gender dysphoria because they all of a sudden aren't the biological gender that they identify as. And that is a problem too. So it's complicated. Like,
Yeah.
It is complicated, and
That's
that
why
is one of the beauties
younger
of
kids
gender
usually
therapy
start.
and them making you do that beforehand. It gives you the chance to figure that out a little bit more. But that was a huge problem that I had when I first started to come out a little bit, was I didn't know if I wanted to immediately start moving towards hormones until I'd had a couple of years to figure out if this was actually a permanent thing or if it was really just a phase. And it ended up not being a phase, but that
Hmm.
was a huge concern of mine for a long time, was that I was going to find out later on that it was a phase.
Yeah, that is a concern. What about you guys, Tillian and Caden? What's your story? How did it go for you guys?
How did I find out I was trans?
Sure. I'm sorry. This is complicated.
Are you comfortable with talking about
Well,
it?
yeah, but I just didn't know if that's what you wanted me to talk about because I missed a little bit of what Lachlan said. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Like you're, coming into your own skin story or coming out or either.
Well, when I was like 14 to 15, I started thinking I was some sort of gender queer. That sounded wrong. I thought I was like non-binary or something, and I just stayed in the closet for like 2 years because I thought it was probably going to be a phase and that I was going to come out of it. And like, well, not non-binary, but I am a trans guy now, and like I figured that out like within days of coming out as non-binary. Like it's like been a year since I came out, I guess, and I'm already on hormones, so I went pretty quickly.
I came out like a few months after Tillian. I was kind of worried about it, but not so because our parents were already accepting him, so why wouldn't they accept me kind of thing? And
Yeah.
then I identified as gender fluid for like months.
Now you're more agender.
Yeah.
Void.
Void?
Void gender is a gender identity.
Okay.
Gender void, not void gender.
One of the things that you just mentioned, Tillian, with the whole coming out as something and then
Yeah.
very quickly realizing that you were actually something else, was a thing that I struggled with a lot because I changed identifications like 5 times in 4 months. And then finally settled on trans male. And even then, like later on, was like, maybe I'm gender queer, but I'm just sort of in the gray area of everything. But people eventually just kind of stopped trying to keep up with my current identity. And that was sort of disheartening, but at the same time, I really understand because it's exhausting to keep up with after a while, even for myself.
Yeah.
So I did have that problem.
I still partially identify with gender queer. I identify as demi-boy, so like, because still like feminine things, and I like guys, so like, that also feminine. Oh,
Chug, chug.
I would become a drag queen.
Fabulous.
Thanks for your addition.
Okay, so labels. Why are they important?
Oh, that's an interesting conversation. A lot of people like to just flat out say labels are bad and wrong. We should get rid of labels. But one argument I've also heard a lot is the one upside for labels is that they help people understand what they are. So like all these different genders and like sexualities and stuff exist because it gives people more options, allows them to figure out what they are. Like if someone feels one way and they think, well, maybe I'm gay, but then they also feel another way, or maybe they're straight, or if it has to do with gender. Labels, they're good in that sense, in that they give somebody something to identify as.
And then they also bring people together because if there's two people that identify a very similar way, then labels can help you to sort of find other people like you. So
Yeah.
there's another upside, but then at the same time, labels in general also cause a lot of complications.
Yeah.
I find with labels it just makes you feel more comfortable in your skin because you can just be like,
Yeah.
I own this, I am this.
Yeah, then you
Exactly.
can you can claim something and
Yeah.
identify with something that is a real thing, and it sort of validates you.
hmm There's no label for genderqueer than you just sadness. I don't know where it's going with that.
I didn't know where you were going with it either.
That's one of the things that I really love about the queer community, is that it's basically labeled as labelless, and it's
Yeah.
really something special.
Hmm.
Somebody else start talking.
I'm trying to
I'm
think,
okay.
like, there
It's
are
easier.
downsides, there are bad parts of labels, but I'm trying to figure out how to talk about it properly.
One thing I've seen about bad parts of labels is the whole like trans male and cis male thing. Like people introducing themselves as cis and trans makes like another level of like difference between a trans man and a cis man. I'm just using that because that's the community I'm in. Obviously, can work with women, trans women, cis women as well.
Mhm.
Like they don't want to like, they just want to be like, I don't want to introduce myself as a trans man every time. Like my gender and a cis man's gender is the same gender for the most part anyway. And like, that's why most people just introduce themselves with their pronouns, because it's like, it's
Degrading. No.
not degrading. It's just easier, and it's like, it's an umbrella thing kind of.
I like umbrellas.
Oh man, that's a whole conversation within itself. Pronouns, but I don't know I don't know how to start a conversation like that. But I think that is something that
Pronouns are
could be brought up.
weird.
Yeah.
Mm.
Continue on.
No,
I had something to say.
I don't really, I don't know how to talk about pronouns because, like, again, like to the trans thing, like, I just don't think, because I have no need to switch my pronouns, so I'm not the best person to talk about that. But if you guys have stuff to talk about pronouns, that'd be awesome.
I have a question for you, Gavin.
All right.
And yes, I also do want to get into pronouns, but this is something that's been nagging at me for a little while now. From the perspective of a cis man who has had several trans guy friends, what is it like having them coming into your sort of gender community? What is it like to accept a trans guy into your community? And is it ever weird for you? Or what is the perspective of a cis guy?
Well, it's not weird. I guess that's an interesting question. I've never really, I have not thought about this. Well, now I might be different. I'm probably different, or my opinion will be a bit different from the majority of cis males, because at least I feel like I'm more accepting than some. Correct me if that's not true.
No, you have really good language. You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Thanks. But I've never noticed it as a problem, or I've never felt, I don't know what the right word is, like intrusion, like, well, because to me, like someone who is like a trans male is just a male. So it's not like you're some like weird, like other gender coming in intruding on ours. You're just male. So at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. So, but that's me. Like I feel like I'm more of an accepting person, and so this stuff has never bothered me. If anything else, maybe a different answer, but for me, totally cool with it, and it doesn't. Am I answering this correctly?
Yeah.
All right. So now, more specifically, someone like me, who has been your friend for years, and you've known me at my most feminine and most masculine times in my life so far. So what was it like having a friend that you probably never expected to be trans, come out as trans, and now is a trans guy? And a guy in general.
So for the entire time since you came out with trans, I never had never did I have a problem with it, but it was always with the pronouns, because the complicated thing, and I brought this up with multiple people, is whenever I get pronouns wrong with someone, it isn't from a source of like aggression or trying to, be offensive. It's just when, someone you've known your whole life comes out as something else, you have to switch pronouns. It's a bit difficult, but shoot. But I don't know how I say this, because it was never, I completely support you. God, I'm not saying this right, because this is,
I think we get
no, wait,
completely
hold on.
supported me. It was just the occasional having to adjust
Yeah.
that you found a little difficult.
Oh yeah, okay. It's just, it was awkward and it was difficult because I wanted there to be understanding that with every time I messed up, no offense was meant. It was just, I was going through an adjustment period. That's what I found difficult, because I completely support you. I completely support everyone who does this, but I just want them to understand that when I mess up, it's not anything against them. I'm not doing it against them or you personally. It's just, it's difficult. I was
It's a
just,
force of
yeah,
habit.
yeah, force a habit. And it was a struggle, because I was hoping, because you really just have to hope that they don't take offense to it, because it sucks, like messing that up, because you don't mean any offense by it at all. It's completely accidental.
I'm going to admit something real quick. I still, to this day, and I've been out for a while, and I still misgender myself on occasion, because of habit.
Same.
So, we get it. We've
All right.
misgendered ourselves. I've walked into the girls' restroom out of habit, and then when everyone started freaking out because suddenly there was a boy in the girls' restroom, I went, sorry, and ran out and melted in the corner out of embarrassment and shame. But, we do get it.
Okay.
I don't pass. I can't go in the men's bathroom.
I'm not really sure if I pass, because it really depends on the day for me. But I do it anyways and have gotten myself into some dangerous situations because of it. So, like one time I was actually in North Carolina and went into the men's room out of habit. And then I was in the one stall and I just see these cowboy boots walk up to the door and they're standing there and he's knocking and I start panicking because I cannot go out there. I'm going to die if I do. And I was in there for way too long just having a panic attack on the floor. I ended up texting Gavin and he's like, why did you text me? I'm in another state. I'm like, I just need to have the confidence to walk out of that door, because if you walk out there with confidence, you're probably going to live.
Yeah. Oh God, North Carolina.
Oh boy, North Carolina. So that was not fun. That was very scary.
Yeah. Like, to what I was saying, like, I think a lot of like cis people actually feel this way, like feel what I'm feeling, because like my parents certainly do when they talk about this, or because it's a real problem, because they just don't mean it. Of course there are people who do mean offense, because that's going to happen, but I feel like a lot of times there are people who are they're just really trying to adjust and they don't mean any offense. And there's always the worry, like, are they going to, like, I really didn't mean an offense by that. And,
well, actually, we have a question from the audience.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we do. It's, I can't pull it up considering my situation, but if somebody could pull that up for us.
I can read it. I've got it. Where'd it go?
Okay, I have it.
Okay.
For those not clear on what the labels mean, could you define them? Pan, demi, cis, trans, etc.
Well, define labels or define the labels that we're talking about?
All
I guess
labels in
all
general?
labels in
Alright.
general, like
So does someone want to go through the common genders and sexuality?
sexualities. Well, okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, what the labels mean. All right. So well, you've got the two binary genders, male and female. All right, and then you've
Starting
got
from
the
the
two kind of really basic binary sexualities, and that's heterosexual and homosexual, and so gay and straight. And then, somebody take this conversation.
Leave off. Hold on.
Well, the things that it was asking for was, in the question was pan, cis, trans, and demi, so we could just
Well,
start with those
okay.
ones.
Those
Okay.
are good.
All right. Pan means
Well, why don't you start with bi? Because it might be
Okay.
a little easier to explain after you
a
explain.
lot of people think bi and pan are pretty similar. So
I
guess
mean,
I'll-
they're similar.
okay, well, bi is you're attracted to both. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Bi
bi is an
is you can-
attraction to two genders.
Yeah.
Pan is an attraction to all genders, sort of regardless
Mhm.
of the gender. Like,
Yeah,
it's no
it doesn't
longer
really
really
matter.
a factor
Yeah.
in the attraction. Or it is, but you still are attracted to all of them. I am pan, and I can't even explain it.
Yeah, me too.
It's just sort of your
I think-
attraction to someone is no longer defined by their physical gender or gender identity.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to explain pan would just be kind of like you like the person because you just like that
The
person.
person.
Doesn't matter what they are, you just like that person.
Yes.
Well, I think we should, wait, I hope I'm not interrupting. Am I
No,
interrupting?
no.
Okay, we should clear up demi because that's certainly,
That's a little more confusing.
sounds a little more confusing.
Demigender or demisexual?
No.
I think it's
Both.
demigender because I said I was
Okay,
a demi
demigender,
boy,
right,
didn't
because
I?
you were talking about demigender. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you explain Demi.
Me?
Yeah.
No, the other one. Well, I identify as a demi boy because I didn't want to conform to the gender binary. I just felt like it wasn't a place for me. So I still I'm 90% guy and then 9% not guy, 10%.
Where's that 1%?
That 1%
1%
is
is gone.
like
It's out the
elements.
window.
Wait. Okay. And wait, now demisexual,
What is
I think demisexual, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, so
Do we need a look? Do we need to go in?
to have a sexual attraction to someone, you have to have you have to already have a connection to them or like know them for a while. It's a,
This is what
It's a
I
special
know.
one.
because We've explained it about
You have to have an emotional connection that
Right.
typically takes a little while to build. So like you can be
Cat picture?
in a romantic relationship with someone and be demisexual. You just don't have the attraction until later on, once you've made that initial emotional connection,
mhm.
which is obviously different for every single demisexual, as every single label is experienced differently for everyone.
This is really weird hearing
Yeah.
it right there.
So they're actually playing the live stream in the
Out
other
in our
room,
living room.
and it's
It's a
kind
very
of,
thin wall.
it's making me anxious. Okay, anyway, so the other one, cis, that's actually, it's the most common, yet some people might not be, familiar with the term cis, but if you're cisgender, that just means it means to identify
Everything adds up.
with the gender you were born with. So it's basic.
I don't count this.
So-
because I'm not sure.
You identify with your genitals, basically.
Yeah.
Simplest way to put it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere. That's the simplest way to put it. And trans is
Why don't we have the trans
the
person?
opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone else explain trans.
We kind of talked about
Trans is the
Okay.
opposite.
Yeah,
Yes,
trans
that's
is
opposite.
when you identify with a gender other than your biological gender, as in what's in your pants.
Mhm. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered those labels.
What about like other ones? There's
Other
a lot more.
sexualities. Well,
There's
we could-
so many.
There's like too many for one.
So
live stream.
if we come across one in conversation, ask us about it.
Yeah,
And
we'll
if
explain
you
it.
have one that you know about but don't understand, ask us. But other than that, I mean, we can't cover all of them today.
There's lots.
All right. So what should we move on to now? So after labels. I mean, I would go into like explain some other sexualities, but like the only one we haven't like in depth explained being gay, but most people know what
Yeah,
gay is.
that's
I'm
a
pretty sure all
basic
people
one
know
that
what gay is
people
at
know.
this point. So
There's a lot
there's
of-
much talk about that.
So
All right.
most people.
Are we all reading that same thing right now?
Yeah, we are.
I'm not reading anything.
There are a lot of sexualities and genders, specifically genders. There are a lot
Yeah.
of genders. I mean, just recently.
I have a question.
Okay.
How many people in this group experience a near daily moment where you get stared at or attract attention for what you look
I
like?
don't go outside.
Okay, then
Problem
other than
solved.
you. Because you're in the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay, well, you like I can go out in public. I am a part of the LGBTQ plus. Oh, I hate saying that fast.
I'll say LGBT.
Yeah, LGBT plus community. But I could go out in public and a lot of people wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's part of my problem as well. Like,
So like, I mean, I attract attention to myself enough for that reason.
All right. So, would you walk down the street holding hands with someone of the same genders?
Yeah,
oh my God.
yeah, definitely.
Maybe, but it's funny you say that because so my friend Sterling's in town. He's a man. He's not gay or anything, to my knowledge,
He's a
but
straight cis guy.
yeah, but
At the moment,
he's really I don't know,
he's
flamboyant.
in the gray area.
So he likes to like hold my hand and stuff. I'm like, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I'm still uncomfortable with the idea of doing that.
Which is strange because we live in New York.
Yeah, I mean,
I
in New York
actually-
City,
And
you
you
could,
see it all the time.
yeah, I know you can totally get away with it, but I personally, I'm not I'm not very comfortable with it. But I will when I get a boyfriend. I will get over that.
Yeah.
Um,
When we
so
go in
is that-
public, because neither of us pass, people assume we're lesbians. So we've been mistaken for lesbians multiple times.
And we're siblings, so it's hilarious.
Oh God.
That's like the opposite problem that lesbians experience.
Yeah.
Because they're lesbians, people are like, oh, so you're sisters or something. And they're like, no, and you
No.
guys have
We
the
live in
opposite
Canada.
problem.
What, me and you?
We're, no. Oh, but that is
Me and
funny.
you are walking
People
together.
assume that Addie and I are lesbians. Like, we'll go to the beach together, and we're wearing the exact same thing. Like, I'm in a sports bra and board shorts, and Addie is in a sports bra and board shorts, and I've got the hair, and she's got the, everything. So people assume that we're lesbians all the time, and we've gotten so many stares. and so
Especially
many-
since I got my haircut.
Yeah, and then, like, we've been catcalled as a lesbian couple. So that's interesting. It's really weird. But Gavin, I meant to talk to you about the Sterling thing, because I was wondering if he was doing that to you too, like the hand-holding stuff.
Yeah.
Because it is really interesting to be in that situation where, like, as the LGBTQ plus person, you have the awareness that he might not have. Because like we have the self-preservation thing and stuff like that where we have to understand our situation and know if it's appropriate
Yeah.
doing something like that. And I've always had this sort of wondering going on in the back of my mind how much he's aware of that.
Ah, God,
It's
yes.
weird talking about this without him and not knowing if he's listening to this.
Yeah, because it's quite possible he's listening to this. Oh, God, I guess, yeah, maybe, you know, I hate saying it because he's listening, but he's
Just
probably
talk.
not aware. Well, yeah, because there is that.
Because a lot of other people probably relate to it.
Yeah, because there's that like thought in the back of your mind, like when we were on the subway or we were walking around the town, he's like, oh, like, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that because we're in public. Or when he like, I don't know, does what he does,
Just
super flamboyant. It's like,
very gay. He
Yeah.
looks and acts gay constantly.
yeah,
Like, I mean, I wear rainbow scarves, but I can generally act like a cis straight male if I have to.
mhm,
I don't really like to. I'm
Yes,
very
hey.
flamboyant and feminine, and I kind of look like a fairy. I just sort of hop around places. But I can if I need to because I know when to. And it's interesting to have that dynamic with your straight cis friends that don't always know that.
yeah,
And then you don't really know how to talk about it with them and how to tell them when they need to start acting straight and
mhm,
start acting cis.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are in danger, and like you don't it's kind of a weird topic to bring up with them, but at the same time it's a conversation that needs to happen.
yeah. It's kind of complicated. Back to the original thing because we're talking about Sterling a lot, and you know, we're like the only two who can relate to that. Only three.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Not really
kind
for
of.
me. 'Cause
So like
this looks like a
about
couple.
just me going out on my own and you know worrying about people noticing me. I now whether this is a blessing or a curse is depends on who you ask, but like I don't in most cases I don't look gay.
Well, you're not very flamboyant.
I'm not flamboyant either. I act straight mostly. Unless and like except for some rare cases. So I don't get noticed. I wear, you know, I just don't look gay. And that's just so when I want people to notice me as gay, it's like it's annoying, but like I don't have to worry about someone discriminating against me in public because of just looking at me because it's not apparent.
Okay. In Canada, so there's not much worry about it. I can't
Yeah,
wait
I was
till I
gonna
look
say.
gay.
Like,
I don't know why I'm high-fiving you.
I don't either.
Yeah, how is it in Canada? I mean, and how it is here in America.
Right now.
Well, we live in a better part of America.
That's
Like
true.
for this topic specifically, not like
Yeah,
other things.
yeah. New York City is pretty darn accepting. You can
Yeah.
wear anything here.
You could go out looking like anything, and no one's gonna judge you.
It's amazing.
They might like look at you like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
They
But
might
no one's
join
gonna
in.
be like, whoa. So
Yeah.
And then
Hmm.
okay, so I'm sure we all just read that.
Yes, we did.
Hey, down here.
Does anyone want to talk about the times that they were afraid to look or act who they were?
I think this is more of a question for like you three because
Yeah. Maybe
Um,
like when hanging out with family.
Yeah, definitely family. That's like the biggest issue because they're all like really religious.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, tell us about your family, because I'm going to go on forever about mine.
Well, for the most part, our family's quite accepting, but
Yeah.
we're so boring.
Yeah, we are. We're not very interesting. We don't have any horror stories or anything.
Sometimes
Oh.
people think we're lesbians.
That's it.
Does this mean it's my turn?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So
Well,
I have a very conservative family. And I was really afraid to come out to them. And I've asked my mother and father to kind of do it for me when it comes to most of my relatives because I
Same.
was genuinely afraid to be in the same room as them when this happened. I didn't know how they were going to take it, and I figured it would be bad. So since then, I have now come out to 90% of my relatives. And most of them took it pretty well. They just sort of are indifferent to me, but they kind of were to begin with pretty indifferent to me. There was some awkwardness, and they just sort of avoid talking about me in general now. They don't use names or pronouns, and they don't tell stories or anything because they're just very kind of afraid. And I feel like that is something to talk about within itself, is the fear of us and of offending us and us in general. Us as in, queer people.
Trans people. Oh.
But overall, it went pretty well. But I was definitely very afraid for a long time. In general, in public, I live in Florida, so there are definitely places where I have been afraid. Although I do happen to live in a really gay town.
Yeah,
so
you live in probably the gayest town.
I live in the gayest part of Florida, and I've moved here from the
Yeah.
gayest part of Michigan. So I've always lived in the gay places, but then we're just kind of hated as a community. And people tend to hate where I live because it's so gay. But there have definitely been times, like I said, when I was in the men's restroom and I've gotten stared at. It's actually worse in the women's restroom because then they're just staring at you and they can't figure out if they're uncomfortable because you're a lesbian or because you're possibly a man, or they don't really know what's going on when I'm in the women's restroom. So yeah, it's more of a discomfort than a fear. Somebody else started talking.
Well, I think, we need to find like that chart of all the genders and sexualities because that's a very interesting conversation. Because that's a long conversation, all the genders that exist.
Oh, I have a question.
Yep.
All right, so this was a question that I was actually asked a while ago. Also, yay, we have the chart now. In a minute. So I was once asked by a person in another minority, who couldn't really hide the fact that they were in a minority, why I was so open and displaying the fact that I am transgender and gay, and how I could almost, how I could put myself out there so much and put myself in danger so often when there were others who couldn't do it at all and they couldn't hide themselves. So I don't know. Does anyone else want to answer this question?
It's not going to get better if we hide it.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a really good point. It's not
I
going to
always
get
want
better.
to be
if we
proud of
hide
who
it.
I am, so I don't try to hide it. Don't do that.
Want to see my frog?
That is a beautiful frog.
Oh my
It's
God.
horrible. I hate it. Let it die.
I agree with that statement though. I mean, things aren't going to change if we just hide ourselves. So there is, you got to take that risk, and you got to, be out there, because nothing's ever going to change. Because the people who are anti, LGBT are just getting exactly what they want if, we're not happy and we're living in the shadows and not accepting ourselves. So, yeah.
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 I mean,
And
but
of all
it's-
the minorities, we are definitely a loud one.
yeah.
And a bright one. I was thinking about that the other day and about how we have our pride parades.
hmm
And of all the marches and protests and celebrations of minorities, ours is very loud and probably very scary for other people who aren't in the LGBT community to kind of come in on. And I wondered if that's ever made other people not accepting of us just because we're so bright.
Hmm.
I
I don't know.
don't. It doesn't seem like a reason for them to be not accepting.
Well, not accepting, but more afraid of us.
Afraid
Because
makes more
we're
sense because we're
putting ourselves
proud.
out there in a very big way.
Mhm.
And not everyone is, but as a community, it's
Yeah. I see
Yeah.
what you mean.
um
Wait, hold on. What was it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing that happens. I mean, because it is, to someone who is, new or new to the LGBT community, or just they're a normal or a basic person, straight, cis, whatever. They might be or male. They might be just straight and cis. They might be, I guess scared away because, well, what it might not be about the flamboyance or the colorfulness. It might just be more they notice the extremer side of it. I noticed that what happens a lot when people start to become accepting is they will get scared away because they tend to focus on the extreme side that might be a bit radical.
mhm.
Yeah.
So when they see statements that end up being anti whatever they are, straight or cis, they get offended by it. And this doesn't mean that they should stop making those statements. It just, God, this is entering a really complicated topic because this goes into oppression and oh God.
Wow, Addie, could you have been more of a lesbian right there?
Carmela, Loki wanted it.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's a very complicated topic. Don't let him on the desk.
No.
So I don't know if we should go into that. I don't think I can really make a concise statement about that. That's easy to understand, and I'd need some time to collect my thoughts on that.
Mhm.
So we should continue.
All right. What are we continuing about? Anyone else have something they'd
Real
like to
quick,
bring
I
up?
actually am gonna have to leave early, so
You can leave at the break.
there's a break.
Yeah, if there's.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So let's see. Where should we go now?
I think we should talk more about
Pronouns?
and what
Oh, yeah.
people can identify as.
Oh yeah, let's talk about pronouns. We didn't end up actually doing that, did we? We just
Not really. Not enough.
enough.
no. Well, because it gets really complicated because not only is there they, and there's even a whole argument about they, if
Them
it's
pronouns are
singular.
valid pronouns.
They-
Okay.
It is in the
Yeah, it
dictionary.
is obviously.
It's,
So, no, no, no.
they is a singular.
All right. So, in the actual dictionary that is commonly used by the vast majority of people, under the third special usage categories,
Yep, the third.
it says, and I quote, they, them pronouns can be used for a singular person if the gender of the person is unknown.
Yeah.
And I'd say that that also qualifies for people that do not identify with a binary gender or would
Yeah.
like to use them for singular pronouns.
Well,
I rest my case.
I mean, actually, it does make a lot of sense that some people don't like the argument that that doesn't count as a actual pronoun is because a lot of people don't think that people can just identify as nothing or like not with any specific
Something
gender.
else.
Something else, yeah. So I guess it does make sense for a lot of people to think that that's not an actual pronoun. But if you are one of the people that identifies as something else, then obviously you can use something other than they, them. Yeah. But that's a basic one for if you don't know what they are.
The third usage is right here. Used with a singular indefinite pronoun or singular noun antecedent in place of the definite masculine he or the definite feminine she. So there you go.
Like, that's another topic, because the whole she, her pronouns being a feminine thing and he, him pronouns being a masculine thing was totally created with gender by society.
Yeah.
So, like...
I mean, the struggle with me coming out, I still get asked if I use it pronouns, and I'm like, I'm not an it, I'm not an inanimate object, am I? So I'm always like, you use they, them, and they still don't understand because they think that that's a group of people, and it's not, because I don't identify with either gender or any gender besides a gender.
You just got mad.
I got mad.
I knew someone who used it and that pronouns. And
yeah, I've heard of people using pronouns like that
took a
too.
lot of getting used to because I always felt like I was being really offensive. And I had to consistently remind myself that I was
that doesn't sound like pronouns to me. But I guess if you want to go by that, okay.
And it's used to insult a lot of trans people as well.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So
I
felt very conflicted using those at first and having to remind myself that this is actually what they want. What it
what it wants.
Is that what it wants?
That's
so weird.
That's complicated. Wow. Holy crap.
And that, what? How do we
that
is that is that
that wants some water. No, it wants
anyways, so as you
anyway.
Wait, what would be the third pronoun for that one?
They then so I don't know.
That's Jesus.
Okay, let's move on from it.
Okay.
Because there are others.
This isn't a focus pronoun. Let's move on to like one of the bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to go into neo-pronouns or?
Is that the technical term for like ones that aren't they or like the other ones?
Yeah, Zer, Zer.
Zer,
AM, right?
AM.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
I don't know.
What's the other one?
Zer, Frey. Wait, what is the Frey ones?
Shim?
Okay. What is shim?
I don't know.
Shim.
I'm just making them up.
I'll be going to introduce my pronouns and I was like, she, shim because of he, him, but
she, shim.
I'll actually say she, shim, but that's
Addie has this problem a lot, and I feel like pronouns really scare a lot of cis people because
they don't scare me. I just
suddenly faced with this part of their own language that they didn't have to think about before.
Yeah.
And like my mother, it took her about 2 weeks to really get good at using they, them pronouns for a singular person.
Which person?
She was suddenly having to think about something that had just been natural for her for years. And now she's good at it, and and I have lots of friends that use they, them pronouns, and she can flawlessly maneuver through those conversations. But it was really interesting to watch her struggle with that. And then to even be like, my pronouns are he, him, and have a cis person go, "What are pronouns?"
Oh man.
That happens to me a lot, especially with children. But they'll be like, "What are pronouns?" Um, 29 pronouns. So apparently there are 29 neo-pronouns. I know 3.
What are they? Like other than like say them.
Well, I know I take that back. I know 2.5.
Can we look them up? I like.
Apparently Anne did.
Oh, but she didn't tell us them. So
Oh, well that's.
she just told us that there's 29 of them. Oh wait, I'll find the link.
All right, so we've got a link on the way. What else do you want to
Okay.
talk about while
Till
we have
then,
this link
um,
on the way?
Don't mind me.
Ooh, I've
Thought
got
that was
one.
a gun.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
thought it was a
Not
gun.
gun.
oh, link.
I had to open my door, but
Okay,
I
what?
lost
It's
it.
Tumblr link.
What were you saying?
Okay, so actually I don't. Let's go back to the pronouns while I think this
Holy
through.
Oh my
Crap.
god! Wait, Thon self?
Okay,
What?
people can't genuinely use these.
Wait, okay, what's the website? I'll just pull it up on my phone.
It's a Tumblr post.
No, it's a Tumblr post.
So I don't even think it's worth mentioning all these because there's a lot of them.
I know, I was just curious.
Okay, well, there's just a lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Google it
you
if
meet
you want to
someone
find
who
out.
uses these, just ask them about it. Them as in actually using them as in multiple people.
Yeah.
The group of people that use these pronouns. What they want to be called.
Yeah.
See, I'm still working on getting good at that one.
Yeah. All right. So that's
All right.
pronouns. There you go.
Okay,
Retry.
so gay jokes. Just
Okay. jokes.
Okay,
So-
jokes.
So many people have such a huge problem with gay jokes, and so many people use gay jokes all the time and make them all the time, especially gay people. So how do we, as a group of 5 people in the LGBTQ plus community, feel about gay jokes?
Well, it really depends. It really depends on the joke because I think
And who's
there are
saying it to
yeah, and
who?
who's saying it to who? Because there are a lot of people who just outright don't like any jokes that exist at the sake of someone. But I feel some of them are okay, but obviously there's a line that can be drawn about any sort of joke that exists to be offensive towards someone. I can't think of any examples, but I think in general they're all right, but they certainly can be used, for offense.
Like, just saying that's gay. It's different when a
Yeah.
gay person says it and a straight person says it.
Yeah, it depends on the person saying it.
That's true.
Yeah, also like who you're saying it to.
Well, I think when most straight people say that's gay, there's some malintent to that statement. It's
that's
not meant, oh, that's gay, like,
overall,
oh, that's a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's gay is
When I
Wow.
say
really
that's
a bad
gay, it's
thing.
a compliment.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, like Tillian said, when I say that's gay, it can often be a compliment. But then, if some straight person saw me and went, "That's gay,"
That's
Um,
offensive.
that's not a compliment.
No.
I'd take it as one still.
Yeah, I still take it as one. I'm always like, "Thank you,"
But like if
and then they're like, "That's gayer."
then that's just straight
But,
up
like-
offensive.
But like right before this live video thing started, we were having a conversation about hat hair, and I was like, "This conversation is really gay."
It was.
It was so gay. But like, it was accepted because it was me, a really gay person, saying that to all of you who are I mean, you're not all gay, but like,
Varying levels of
I mean, you
gay.
are actually gay.
I call myself gay and I'm not gay, but
So,
I'm bi. So
I do that
that's
too.
a different story.
I feel like that really confuses people because I say that I'm gay all the time, even though I really identify as pansexual, and panromantic. So,
Saying that's
I don't-
bi just doesn't have the same ring to
Yeah.
it.
yeah, that's so bi.
And then you
What's the
leave.
situation that
What did I just say?
yeah.
it's like checking out a guy and a girl at the same time? That's bi. What?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay. Sure.
All right.
I was just about to make a really good point and then I forgot it.
Come on, Lachlan.
Well, I mean, I guess to preface it, I mean, it's like with any sort of joke that's at the sake of someone, like even more than just gay people. I mean, with like race or against women or something, like that statement kind of applies to all of them. That it really depends on how extreme it is, or what is the joke or the usage,
And if
like
it's
who you
commonly
are.
understood
With the light coming
that
from-
the intent is innocent and just having fun versus malintent.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend who, pardon my language, calls me a faggot a lot. And I am okay with that because I understand that their intent is okay. I wouldn't let just anyone call me that. But coming from them, it's understood that it's not supposed to be offensive.
Yeah. Now that kind of thing, I would in no way would I ever be comfortable with that. Like even if it was like explicitly obvious that they didn't mean any offense, I wouldn't be able to take that. I mean, just because of the historic, power behind that word and
Yeah.
my knowledge of it. No, I'm not comfortable with that. I know some people are.
I'm going to bring up a statement that I once used for something else, and that statement was, "It's not their word to wield."
Yeah, that's when we were talking about the N-word a while back.
So it's not just, that statement doesn't just apply to like straight people calling gay people demeaning terms. Yeah, you're sort of shiny, Tillian.
Yeah, I've
it's glowing.
noticed.
It's
Doesn't it look
beautiful.
beautiful?
Yeah.
It adds to our aesthetic.
But it really just applies to these words and these phrases and these jokes and these things have so much power behind them because of past things that have happened. So, even people like us that these words could be used against, it's sometimes not even our word to wield because we haven't been the victims of hate crimes yet or something like that. So there is just so much power behind these words that
Yeah.
it needs to be talked about. That's all I'm saying.
Like
I'm not
queer
really sure
used to
how to talk
be-
about it yet.
Like
but it needs
queer
to be
used to be a
talked
word used against us, but now it's used as an umbrella term sometimes.
Well, sometimes it's I feel from what I've observed on like Tumblr and like talking to people, it does seem like for the most part it has been reclaimed by gay people or LGBT
What are we
people.
talking about?
But the word queer,
Ah,
but that doesn't mean that a straight person can go like say, oh look at that queer. There's still
Yeah.
like this
there's still
this
this
kind of
thing.
goes into like words in general. Like if there's malintent behind it, then it's not good. Like even though that word has been mostly reclaimed, like it still has like offensive power. So it's really how offensive a word is about the intent behind it, mixed with like the history of that word. That's what it's really about.
Yeah. I realized as I was sitting here that I really brought my gay game to this because I wore a lot of rainbows and it wasn't an intentional thing. I was just like, I'm going to wear a scarf. And then it ended up getting really gay.
I thought it was intentional. It's a beautiful scarf, by the way.
Thank you.
Nice. All right, what now?
Sure, break.
All right, well, okay, so we are going to enter a break. We'll see you when we return. All right.
I took a female date to junior prom.
How do I tell my family?
Who is it okay to tell and when that my kid has come out?
How do I support my child the best that I can?
I was working hard to understand. Have you been doing drugs? Have you been drinking? No, I haven't done that. But I am gay.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is a show for parents of gay kids.
Today we're going to be talking to you about the power of words.
How do I deal with people when they say things like, "That's so gay"?
This is a thing, right? This is totally a thing. I think that it's something that a lot of us are sensitive to no matter what our circumstances, but if your kid has just come out to you, all of a sudden you're probably hearing that phrase so much more.
Absolutely. And it is okay to say something like, hey, I'd appreciate it if you don't say that. And you don't even have to take it a step further and say, my son is gay and I feel very strongly, don't say that. But you know, you never know who's around and someone could be hurt by those words. So just bringing that to someone's attention, I think is a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You don't have to, depending on how out your child is, you certainly can speak to that without outing your child, just like Danielle said. If you're a parent and your kid has just come out to you, you may not be comfortable speaking up yet, and that's okay. It's not your sole job on this planet to make everyone stop saying that. So this is really a personal conversation that you need to have with yourself, and also you can have it with your kid.
Yeah, totally. And especially if your kid has siblings and they say those phrases, I think it's great to start there and just say, you know, don't say that because it is hurtful. And maybe it's not hurtful to us directly in this family, but you have a lot of people that you go to school with and you don't know how those words might hurt them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example of what we always talk about, which is the importance of having a home environment that is safe no matter what your identity. That should be a rule in your home no matter how your child identifies. You don't say, that's so gay. You don't say it, period. Why, Mom? Well, because this is why. Because there are people who identify as gay out there in the world, and if they hear you using it like that, they might think that you wouldn't like them. They might feel uncomfortable saying who they are.
Words are powerful, and words are tricky, and the meaning of words change over time. The word queer is a great example. It was used in only a derogatory sense for such a long time, and now it's come to mean something different.
Your kid who is using these phrases might not mean what they're saying, but the person who hears them, that's where all of the impact is had, and that's why it's important to talk to people about those phrases if you're comfortable.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of words, there are so many new terms that you're going to be learning and hearing about now that you have a child who is in the queer community. If you look in the back of our book, this is a book for parents of gay kids. There is a glossary. We also have that glossary published on our website, theparentsproject.com, and we're lucky enough to have a friend of ours from PFLAG who's going to go over a lot of those key terms for you today.
Hello, my name is Jean Marie Navetta and I work for PFLAG National. PFLAG is the nation's oldest and largest organization representing parents, families, friends, allies, and LGBTQ people themselves united in the effort to achieve equality for all and move equality forward. Today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about some terminology, namely the LGBTQ acronym. There is the L in the acronym, which stands for lesbian. Lesbian refers to women who are attracted to other women. I happen to fall into that category. The G in the acronym LGBT, which stands for gay, usually refers to men, but it can refer to women, and it's people who are attracted to people of the same sex. And that attraction can be romantic, physical, emotional, spiritual. The B stands for people who are bisexual, or sometimes you'll hear the term bi. People who are bisexual are attracted to both sexes. They see attraction equally, and the person's gender does not necessarily matter. And when we're talking about gender identity and expression, we're often talking about people who will identify as transgender, or sometimes you'll hear the term trans. Now, trans is a really big term. It encompasses a lot of different identities, but at the heart of that is talking about individuals who were assigned one gender at birth but identify as something else. The last letter in the LGBTQ acronym is that Q, and a lot of people understand it to mean queer. It's a big umbrella term, and it could mean a lot of different things, but essentially at the heart of it is somebody who identifies within the LGBT spectrum. One last word that sometimes gets mixed into that Q is questioning. They're individuals who are sort of on their journey to understanding their sexual orientation and their gender identity. And whether we're talking about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, it doesn't matter. Here's the big rule to remember as a parent or somebody who wants to be supportive. Take people at their word. Believe them when they tell you who they are, and use the language that they use for themselves. And that is a great way to be a supportive parent or a supportive ally.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope that we've helped you understand some new terms and recognize just how powerful words can be. If you'd like more videos like this one, subscribe to our channel.
Also, if you have more questions, you can leave them in the comments below or tweet at Parents Project. I still went with shoulders.
Oh, you did? I was like...
Hi, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Okay, so
All right. So what do we want to talk about?
I think we should start talking about how people are feeling when they're transitioning into certain
When as you
know what I'm trying
realize
to
who
say.
you are.
Yeah,
like,
as you're realizing what. No.
no. Sorry about that.
And
Alright.
before you were starting to come out, what you were feeling, because I actually have to leave in a few minutes, but I wanted to quickly say, I, at the moment, do identify as female and like that, but I am not super feminine. I can be, but at a lot of times I lean a little masculine. And so I've thought a couple times, I haven't yet, but maybe go by they them for a little bit and try that. But I haven't started doing that yet.
Okay.
And I'm still not sure if I want to.
Okay.
But it's just an idea.
I don't know. I feel like, so I have an opinion on this, but I feel like it is kind of, I don't know, I guess some would look at it as offensive or bigoted. It's just, where do we draw the line between just having, maybe not standard, you're not entirely feminine or not entirely masculine? Where do we draw the line between just feeling slightly different or actually being something completely different? Because
I see, there's people, that's why I'm not sure if I want to go by they, them, or anything yet. Because, there are times when you can just feel like that, but you definitely identify as this one thing, but you just sometimes will feel more masculine or more feminine,
yeah,
depending on the person. And then there are actually people where it's you are both or you're neither.
Yeah. Well, and
right? What?
All right,
Yeah,
guys.
the line between gender identity and expression is a very thin line.
Yeah.
I think, and
that's why I feel like if you are like this, it would actually almost be smart to go by they, them, or something else for a little bit.
it's just it's really just if it makes you more comfortable.
Yeah, just to see if I actually don't always feel comfortable when you call me a cis female, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you're questioning it, that's a thing that goes around. If you're questioning it, then it's a big probability that you actually are.
Exactly. That's why if you are something like this, I think it's almost smart to try out different things, see if that's actually what you are, or you are just someone that acts a little of both.
Yeah, that's when I first came out, I was very confused because I was well, I like to dress manly sometimes or more feminine some days. And I was so confused. That's why I was starting to question it. And especially after Tillian came out, because I was I never kind of knew about that stuff. And then after some thinking, I was well, can you try, to my family, can you try to use they, them? You don't need to announce it. I'm not going to announce it because I'm not comfortable with that person. And then I thought that it was better for me to use they them because I felt most comfortable and happy, even though sometimes it was confusing when people would refer to things as they them because I was like, you're talking about me or that group of people?
Yeah. When I use they them pronoun for a group of people, I always try to make sure like that it's specified that it's a group or
All
not a
of
group.
them.
Yeah, that's obviously plural.
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously
And then you can
group.
say,
I wanted to say that I actually have to go. It was fun talking to you people.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, see you later, Addie.
Bye.
Okay, now it's just me. Now you have to deal with me.
Shut up.
You close the door. Thanks. All right. I don't know. I feel like it's just it's complicated because just because you're a man and you know sometimes you're manly here and you're feminine here or vice versa, that doesn't necessarily mean you are something else. So
No, not necessarily, but like if
Like-
you are like really confused and being like what is this feeling that I'm feeling kind of thing. But if you're comfortable with wearing feminine things and being a boy and identifying as a boy, then that's fine. That's who you are. But
Yeah.
with people who are actually, you know, agender, gender fluid and stuff like that, it's like a whole different feeling kind of because
It's the only way to really understand the feeling of being trans is to be trans.
yeah.
it's really hard to explain.
Mhm.
So all right.
So, if the
could
only
also
way to
start
understand
feeling
being
dysphoric,
trans
though.
and the feeling that comes with it is to actually be trans, then what advice do we have for friends and family of trans people that are trying really hard to understand?
Yeah. All right.
Do we have any advice for them? What would you tell someone who is coming to you asking you how to understand their gender fluid child?
Just be accepting. Just
Talk
ask
about
them
it.
what makes them comfortable and do what makes them comfortable. Yeah, just gotta be open about it.
You gotta like open your mind and talk about it, not just like the surface.
Google
you have
stuff.
To get like right down.
Google stuff.
Google.
Make sure it's good sources though. There's a lot of bad
Google.
sources. YouTube it from actual gender queer people too.
Do any of you guys remember that meme where the guy was identifying as a wolf?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You mean
The
the
video? The
Yeah,
video meme?
all right.
it was
So-
something like that.
All right, so the backstory of that meme is, so this person's trying to do a documentary about otherkin. Okay, I guess we should probably explain what that is. Otherkin is somebody who feels like they aren't human, like spiritually.
Sometimes it's just like an anxiety thing, like people they don't actually think they're cats, but they identify with cats to like help with their anxiety and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
So, the other day,
That makes it seem more sane anyway.
Yeah.
It's the same with like
the other
adults
day,
still
that
identifying as
video was brought to my attention again.
around.
And we were talking about where you draw the line with identities. And that video has been brought to my attention by so many people. I have been compared to that guy. And like, so we're being portrayed by the media as these weird things through people like this, and then getting compared to people like this that is something totally different. But I'm not really sure where I'm going with this.
All right. Well, I see what you mean. What I'm gathering from this is, and also from personal experiences, I think for people to understand, I think people need something that truly signifies that they truly that they are what they say they are, and specifically with this example, I'm going to use trans, but I think you can experience this with other genders. For some people, that is gender dysphoria. If for someone to truly be, according to some people, because I've looked around circles where like like the more centrist right-leaning people who say they support trans people, in their eyes, for someone to truly be trans, they have to experience gender dysphoria.
I really disagree with that.
All right. I want you to, because you're, explain this.
There's this I'm not gonna name any names, but like there was this video about a trans woman talking about like you can't be trans without experiencing dysphoria, and it's like saying kind of if you don't hate yourself, you're invalid, because dysphoria is fucking terrible. It feels horrible. It's like the worst part about being trans, and even cis people can feel dysphoria as well, actually, gender dysphoria. So like it's different. It's being trans is just not wanting to be the gender you were born with. You don't need to have dysphoria. I wish like no trans people needed to have dysphoria.
Should we explain what gender dysphoria is?
Yeah.
Right.
There's different kinds of gender dysphoria. There's social dysphoria,
And
emotional dysphoria, and
gender dysphoria, and
physical
like
dysphoria.
physical, yeah. It's like it can be one thing, like target like your hands, your legs, your face. Lots of face dysphoria.
All right, so dysphoria is that really awful feeling that you get when your gender identity doesn't match something in your life. So like there's social dysphoria, where like I would experience a lot of social dysphoria when people called me a girl, or used she, her pronouns, or used my birth name. And then that's social dysphoria. And then there's physical dysphoria, which is really awful. And that is, say, like, let's say I thought my nose was really feminine. So this is a really bad example, but if I thought my nose was really feminine and I thought that that was the reason that I wasn't passing and I just really hated it, that could be physical dysphoria. Help me out here,
That's
guys.
that's what most people think of. Like when you ask one of these people about gender dysphoria, that's what they're thinking of. They're thinking of, you know, a extreme discomfort with one's body, and with, you know, your birth genitals and, you know, appearance. That's what most people think of. But beyond that, I can't explain this well because I don't have a personal, you know, story about gender dysphoria.
It sucks.
It sucks.
Yep.
So I personally have pretty awful top dysphoria. So I feel really uncomfortable about my chest. And I'm actually pretty small chested naturally, but I still have, that is my worst area of dysphoria, and that is my dysphoria about my chest, because it is a constant reminder that I was born biologically female, and that I don't always fit in, and I don't always pass, and it's just a constant reminder of all of these things in my life that I have deemed really negative, and it really sucks.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing a sweater right now, because I don't want to wear my binder.
Me neither. And for those of you who don't know what a binder is something that you can wear to compress your chest so that it's not as visible.
I call it Satan's titty compressor.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's a great name.
Thanks.
Anyways, so dysphoria in general is very difficult to explain and understand, but at the same time it's really not, because everyone experiences a feeling similar to that. It doesn't have to be about their gender, but it's very difficult to explain because we're only associating it with our gender, so we're not really sure how to talk about it. Other people, I don't know if I'm the only one that has this problem, but I always find that explaining transgender issues to other people is very difficult because the only what is the word, example that I have is myself and gender related things, and
Everybody
there are a lot of
feels
people
different about
that don't
it
feel
as
that
well.
discomfort with their gender but may feel it with something else. So we could be relating to each other a lot more if we just had a way to find that one thing that makes you really uncomfortable about yourself, and then we could apply that similar situation to us, and suddenly there's an understanding that wasn't there before.
All right.
I don't know. Just,
Sure.
yeah.
Just a second with
Oh,
this.
I would also like to say that everything that we are saying in no way applies to the rest of the LGBTQ plus community. These are our personal opinions and experiences. Please do not hold us accountable for things.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different story, yo.
Yeah, like I don't have as much chest dysphoria as I do face and voice dysphoria. It can be completely
I have a lot of
different.
voice dysphoria, which is weird because I talk a lot.
Yeah.
So you'd think that I would talk less, but nope.
I'm normally pretty good. My voice is pretty deep.
Yeah. Like my voice hasn't dropped super much since starting testosterone, but every time I can hear like a tiny pitch, I like cry a bit.
All right.
Cry joy.
Where can we go now?
My battery is failing.
Well, is there anything anyone's been wanting to talk about, they've thought about, or a point they want to bring up? And really, come on.
I will be right back.
Oh, really?
I have to solve a problem. I will be right back.
Oh, crap. Okay, hold on.
What?
So,
how's the weather? The weather
okay.
is great.
The weather's gay.
I'm trying to think of something else we can talk about. Like, should we continue talking about trans, or should we,
Hmm.
I
don't want to talk about bigots. They make me tired.
mean, we should probably talk about that because that is a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, being afraid of, again, I don't necessarily think it's about being afraid. It's more about, it's just bigotry, like homophobia. It's just about what? All right, it says like hate comes from fear. Well, I know that's true. Well, for a lot of people, it's about religion, and so there's that aspect of it. So there is a fear part of that.
All right, so I've got a question for you guys. If hate comes from fear, then what does fear come from?
A misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding. So how do we solve misunderstanding?
Educate, like we're doing right now.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, but like a large part of the problem with the ignorance in our country is I think we talked about this on like one of the other live streams. Like if you've driven through like North Carolina or Georgia or Virginia or I don't know, those states down there, you'll understand why like these people are ignorant, because they live in these tiny towns where they only know what their parents have told them and religion.
Filled with straight white people.
Yeah, so they only know that, so that's where a large part of their ignorance comes from, and it's really difficult to break away from that. I mentioned when we brought this up last time, now that with the existence of internet, I think these people there's a higher chance that they can move on from that and, be a better person when they're an adult, and they can not be super ignorant, but it's still a large problem. And that's where a lot of that fear and hatred comes from. Just ignorance about us, about our feelings. And it's complicated.
I missed that question. Can someone read it to me?
Is it complicated because it's up to you to educate and stop the fear, or is it up to the people who are afraid?
It's up to us to change the things that we're unhappy with, but it's really not all up to us, because it can't be our job to educate everyone.
Yeah.
So that's putting a lot of pressure on us. Sometimes they won't even listen or try to understand, though. So
yeah.
Well,
And then there's
I don't think it's that black and white. I mean, I like most issues. It's not it's not a one-sided issue. There needs to be a level of acceptance from them, or a level of, all right, I'm going to give you a shot, explain, like, plead your case. And we need to, educate them a bit. And it's, I'm trying to make a concise statement. That's where I struggle with these things, like thinking about this stuff and trying to make something that makes sense. All right, Lachlan.
Okay. Since my coming out, it has been my job to educate everyone who didn't understand. And that's been really exhausting, because there are things like the internet and other people in the world that understand this. So for a long time, I really didn't understand why it was always my job to do all the educating. And it made me kind of resentful for a little while, because I got tired of having to explain everything to everyone. But then there's also, like, they don't need to understand, because it isn't affecting them. So I was the only part of their life that required them to have a certain level of education in this area. So then that posed the question for me, anyways, in my own mind, is it my responsibility to educate them because I'm the one that wants the thing to change? And I came to the conclusion that I don't need to educate them, but if they're willing to listen, then I will gladly educate them. So obviously I haven't come to a lot of conclusions about this. This is still a thing that I think about a lot. But that's kind of where I stand. And I am always open to answering questions. It's the fact that people aren't asking questions that's causing the problems in my life.
All right.
There's a silence now. I don't know
Hmm.
where else to go with that.
I think that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. Where am I going to go with this? Certainly, part of the problem is just not being able to personally relate to us. So, like, with a lot of, like, that's probably a source of bigotry, is just either a lack of ability to relate and a lack of care to relate or to learn about our problems. So one thing that does lead, people to understanding is having someone personal to them go through this process. Like, so there's this incredible story on, well, I don't know if I want to use the word incredible, interesting story on Facebook about this mom. She's a Christian. She's in a Christian part of America, so all her friends are of that religion, and she has a son who, from a very early age, insists that she's a girl, And this was something that this mom struggled with for a while, because this is from like it's like 3 or 4, and she was insisting upon this for a long time. And early on, the mom did not understand, and she wasn't listening to it. And the mom she wouldn't let, this clearly girl be a girl. And then eventually she talked to people about it. And then she started joining like communities of like people in similar situations who are going through the same struggle on Facebook. And then she started help like letting her daughter transition, not medically, but socially. Like, starting let her wear like clothing and like female underwear and stuff. And it's a really touching story. And that went into, if you read the comments on this, there was a lot of argument about not about the right time to transition socially, but medically. So this is like, I'm segueing into another conversation. But to answer that, it does, for a lot of people, they just need something personal to get them to understand. But I would like to segue into the conversation about like medical transition, because there, like, if you read this comment section, there were the people on the right who were like, no way, you can't let her transition because she's too young. She might be a phase. You have to wait until, she's an adult. And then there were the people who were on the left. It surprised me because I believe these people must have been more extreme left, because they were saying like, the second they show signs, you have to get on top of it. And that is that's a predicament, because I brought this up earlier. I just think this can be talked about a bit more. So specifically with medical, like, because this, I guess we kind of did talk on this. We did, about how if they're showing signs that they want to be this, then they probably are. But if it is just a phase, then, you never know. But it's complicated.
I think the biggest problem with like what you were just talking about, as soon as someone's showing signs they need to medically transition immediately, is that medically transitioning, like transitioning in general, but specifically medically transitioning for this context, is such a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And every aspect of it is such a personal decision. Like, I really want to start hormones, and I really want to get top surgery if that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other things that I don't really want about medically transitioning. But then someone else can feel so differently about that. So even something like any aspect of medically transitioning is such a personal choice that you can't force that on someone, and you can't rush them into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time to think about and come to terms with. And that is like, I really don't like that whole, as soon as they're showing signs, they immediately need to start medically transitioning thing, because that's not going to work.
Yeah. It's where the difficulty, what gets interesting is, okay. It is a personal decision, and it's because of that, it's complicated. Well, what it happens is, if it is best ultimately when it comes to transitioning and the body, the sooner the better. But at that age, it's not really about, it's more on the parent than the child to give consent, because they're just at that age. At that age, they're still, like you're talking about earlier, where it's like the parents might think it's a phase. So it becomes complicated because it's really on the parents to figure it out and less about the child. Because once you're like 15 and you're saying like I identify as this, it's probably pretty certain. So I don't know. Where am I going with this?
Yeah, the thing is though,
Yeah.
transitioning doesn't need to be black and white. There's more than just hormones and not hormones. If you're like kind of figuring it out around 10, almost about to hit puberty, you can go on hormone blockers, and that just puts puberty off for a while, so you can start to figure it out till you're like older, so you know you're sure. You go off hormone blockers, you get your normal puberty back, and if you go on like the other hormones, then you get the other one. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be black and white. You can push it off.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
All right.
Yeah.
Where should we go now?
I have a question for you guys.
All right.
Actually, I just have a question in general. Why is it that people don't believe that bisexuals exist?
Well,
This is a funny question, but it could start topics of conversation.
all right, Lachlan, your video just went out, but
I know. I'm trying to fix it.
all right, I'll answer. I think,
We're good. We're back.
well, actually what I've noticed in a lot of situations is it's less about not acknowledging that they exist. It's just not considering them part of the LGBT community, because to a lot of, I guess, not necessarily radical, but probably more radical leaning people in the LGBT community, for you to even count as part of this community, you need to, you know, have some level of oppression against you. And for bi people, it's just like, well, you can date the opposite gender and be straight passing, and so therefore you don't face oppression, and therefore you don't deserve to be with us. So it's not really.
I think with bisexuality though, it's a lot of like you have to choose. Like you can't have both. That's what I've had with like a few people. They're like, well, I don't understand. They think that I'm either one or the other, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Because romantic attraction is like, I lost my train of thought there.
No, I see what you mean. It's like in that aspect, they are not acknowledging its existence because they're just like, no, you have to choose. So I get that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have to like? Is this going to lead into a talk about TERFs?
Oh shoot. TERFs. That's like a radical side that is ridiculous. So
we should at least say what TERFs are.
So a TERF, isn't that it? It's a trans exclusionary radical feminist. I'm not a big fan of radical feminists, period. I probably shouldn't have said that. But like that is really extreme. TERFs are very extreme. I'm not a fan of radical stuff in general, because what happens when somebody is really radical, they tend to just, everything's one-sided, everything's black and white, everything. There's no middle ground. And with almost every conversation, politics, race, gender, whatever, it's never black and white. And I believe on both sides, that's where people get it wrong. So in general, I'm just not a fan of people who are radicals. Yeah.
Yeah.
TERFs.
All right. Hold on, where do I want to put this?
I think the first step to understanding the LGBTQ plus community is accepting the fact that not everything is black and white. It's more like a rainbow.
Yep.
And once you've got that down, now you can start to understand things.
Imagine a rainbow.
Yeah, I agree.
everyone like radical outside of LGBT stuff just thinks that everyone's actually gay and that trans people are just really gay and
Oh God.
and bisexuals are just confused and
kind of gay.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question that I'm sure this was thought about, because we're talking about something political. I'm sure you guys knew our president was going to come up. How do you?
Your president, we live in Canada.
Oh shoot! Crap! You live in Canada. Crap!
Sorry.
We're still afraid of him. Very afraid.
We're kind of afraid of him too.
Well, all right. So I guess for us, I mean, it's like, are you worried about stuff being changed to oppress us by this man?
I mean, it's going to affect us.
Who shall not be named.
Either way.
Maybe
So,
he should be named. He should be
Lachlan, I guess, Lachlan, are you worried about it? Because they're in Canada.
Well, yes and no. I mean, our rights have already started to go down the drain. But I personally am not as worried about it because considering my unique situation and the state that I was born in, I didn't have a lot of rights to begin with. So I legally cannot change the gender marker on my birth certificate. So that wasn't going to change anyways. But I am concerned for the people who are afraid. I myself have chosen to remain as fearless as possible in this because if necessary, I will run. But I'm worried. I'm worried for everyone. I'm worried for the people that will affect more. But I am refusing to be too afraid. And I'm refusing to let it affect me too much.
All right.
There's another thing though about him that like he kind of needed to rise to power. So now everyone can see that his radicalness cannot work because things are already crashing and burning. They needed to a little bit, and people were predicting that this was going to happen because of the pattern of like how far we've gotten in improving things, that he had to win because something bad needed to happen.
Yeah, we needed to be shocked.
To be honest, I'm more scared of his followers than him himself.
Yeah, he's just a big orange idiot.
I do agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he as a person does not scare me. It's the fact that there are that many people out there.
I could fight him.
What he stands for.
One-on-one.
He'd just be like, wrong.
Like, one-on-one, I can take him in his tiny hands.
Oh my God.
But facing a mob of that kind of people, that kind of mindset.
Yeah, people are taking everything he says like so to heart.
And ignoring everything else he said.
They're just like, we have to, like, once he says one thing negative about a community, they're going to be like, yeah, let's do that because he's, like, a president. Whoa. So, yeah.
He changes his mind so often, though. Like, these people must only be listening half of the time. They're just, like, he says a bunch of stuff that'll affect them. They're sleeping, and then they're like, also, I hate black people. And they're like, yes, me too.
This.
It's
all right.
I said it. I can say it. That's what they're thinking. I don't hate black people.
That was rude.
It was an example.
I know, great example.
Okay, do you have anything else we want to mention?
We're just people.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just people.
We are just people.
We just want to love and be loved and go about our daily routines, possibly do some yoga. We're really just people, and we're usually open to questions. If
We're
you
really
come
funny.
from
We're
a place
hilarious.
of
You should
genuinely caring.
tell some jokes with us.
I'm horrible on jokes. I'm
That's
not
true.
a funny person.
Send us memes.
There is no need to fear us. We're not
Yeah, and don't be
that
afraid
scary.
to ask questions. Like,
Unless they're
Most of us are
stupid
quite
questions.
small.
stupid
Don't
questions.
ask what's in my pants. You
Justice
already know.
is in my pants.
You don't need me to admit to it.
Just
Justice.
don't. And like, don't beat me up if I use your bathroom.
I just gotta pee.
Other than that,
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Well.
it.
All right. Well, that's that.
Yeah, that's that.
It was a good statement. Anything else? I think we can wrap this up now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This has been Youth on Subjects of the World, talking about LGBTQIA+. Nailed it. All right.
Woo.
See you on the next live stream.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.